For this trash camera.
It kind of hit him like a punch in the gut the moment she laughed. Yeah, that sharp, careless laugh. The kind that tells you someone thinks you're a joke before you even say a word. Jacob just stood there, holding that old vintage camera like it was the last steady thing in his life. Single dad, janitor, shoes a little worn out. Shirt sleeves rolled because the air conditioning in the lobby was broken again. And he still showed up. He always showed up. He didn't talk much, didn't complain, just worked, kept his head down, and tried to raise his kid right. But today, today felt different. The billionaire woman was standing near the marble staircase, designer heels clicking like she owned gravity. Single mom, yep, but nothing about her life looked like struggle. Diamond bracelet, sleek black sunglasses, the whole I don't have time for normal people vibe. She was scrolling her phone while her kid whined about wanting to leave. Then she noticed Jacob adjusting his camera, taking a quiet shot of the sunlight hitting the museum doorway. He wasn't bothering anyone, just doing his thing during break time. Photography was the one place where life didn't feel heavy. He saved that feeling like some people save passwords. She tilted her head, smirked, and said loud enough for everyone around to hear, "Seriously? That ugly old thing? What is this, the dinosaur age?" Then she actually laughed, like he'd just shown up with a toy instead of history in his hands. People glanced, some chuckled, others stared and then looked away real quick, because looking at someone else's humiliation always feels weird. Jacob swallowed, nodded like he was fine, even though nope, he wasn't. He could have said something, could have snapped back, but he just said, "It still works," in that quiet, tired voice people like him develop over time. The kind that says, "Yeah, life's been rough, but I'm still here." The billionaire mom shook her head and muttered, "Looks like junk. You should get a real camera." Her kid laughed too. That one stung more. Jacob held the camera tighter. That thing wasn't just metal and glass. It had belonged to his dad, the one person who never got the chance to see him grow old enough to be exhausted like this. The one who used to say, "Kid, this camera sees people the way the world forgets to." Jacob chose not to explain any of that. People like her didn't care about stories like his. But then, life flipped the table in like 30 seconds. A museum curator walking by suddenly froze. His eyes locked on the camera. He didn't laugh. He didn't smirk. He didn't even blink. Instead, he stepped closer like he was seeing a ghost. "Excuse me," the curator said, voice shaky. "Sir, where did you get that camera?" Jacob blinked. My dad's." "Why?" The guy looked like his brain was doing cartwheels. He waved over another staff member, then another, whispering, shocked faces, wide eyes, like they just found buried treasure in plain sight. The billionaire woman scoffed. "What, are we pretending the junk is special now?" The curator ignored her completely. This isn't junk," he whispered. "This is one of the last surviving prototypes made by Lorenzo Marcelli, the man who changed modern photography. We've been searching for this model for 20 years. Jacob just stood there, confused, like someone had swapped reality out without warning. The curator swallowed hard. "Sir, the museum would like to make you an offer. A very, very large one." And for the first time all day, no one was laughing anymore. Before we continue the story, let me know in the comments how you liked it and where you're watching from. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to subscribe and share a real incident from your own life that relates to this story. The comment with the most likes will be turned into the next story. For a second, Jacob thought the dude was joking. Like maybe this was some prank show, and any moment someone was gonna jump out yelling, "Gotcha!" But the curator's face? Nope. Dead serious. The guy looked like he'd just discovered a lost spaceship in the middle of a grocery store. The lobby went quiet. Even the billionaire mom stopped smirking. Her eyebrows kinda twitched like the world wasn't following her script anymore. Jacob shifted the camera in his hands. It's just been sitting in my closet for years," he said slowly. I only use it sometimes. Keeps me calm, you know? The curator nodded like Jacob had just said something holy. This model disappeared after the Marcelli workshop fire, he said. Collectors assumed every prototype was destroyed. But this, he leaned closer, this one survived. Another staff member spoke up, nervous and excited at the same time. Sir, do you know what you're holding? Jacob shrugged. My dad's camera. The curator swallowed. You're holding a piece of photography history worth potentially millions. That word didn't sound real in Jacob's world. His brain immediately did janitor math, overdue bills, school shoes for his kid, rent, groceries, broken car engine, and then that word again, millions. The billionaire woman finally snapped out of it. Okay, hold on, she said. You're telling me that ugly dusty camera is worth more than... The curator didn't even let her finish. Yes. Her jaw locked. Yeah. That hurt her ego way more than it hurt Jacob earlier. He stood there trying to breathe steady. His fingers tightened around the camera, like it might float away if he didn't hold on. He wasn't used to people treating him like he mattered. Definitely not like this. The curator cleared his throat. Sir, would you be willing to step into my office so we can discuss an official valuation? Jacob hesitated. I gotta finish my shift. The man blinked like he'd never heard that sentence before. Your shift? Yeah, Jacob said. I work here. Maintenance. Silence again. Then one of the guards whispered, He works here? With that camera? The billionaire woman rolled her eyes. Oh, please. You people are exaggerating. It's probably worth a couple hundred at best. The curator turned to her with the politest but coldest tone possible. Ma'am, with respect, you have no idea what you're talking about. Her lips thinned. Jacob's phone buzzed in his pocket. A message from his daughter. Dad, can you bring fries tonight? I aced my quiz. He smiled a little. Yeah, fries. He'd been counting coins earlier to make that happen. Life was funny like that. He looked back at the curator. If we talk, what does that mean? Like, do I gotta give it up right now? No, the curator said gently. It's your property. We just want to authenticate it. And if you're open to selling, the museum is prepared to make a life-changing offer. Life-changing. Another word that didn't belong in his dictionary. He nodded slowly. Okay, after my shift, I'll come by. The curator shook his head instantly. Sir, with respect, this can't wait. We'll cover your time. Please, come now. A manager hurried over, whispering something about corporate, liability, historic artifact, all that formal noise. Then he said, Jacob, go with them. We'll handle the floor. For the first time ever, people weren't looking through him, they were looking at him. The billionaire woman watched, arms crossed, jaw tight. Her son tugged her sleeve and whispered, Mom, you laughed at him. She didn't answer. Jacob followed the curator toward the office, camera in hand, heart pounding like it finally remembered how to hope again. He didn't know what was coming next. But yeah, something big was about to change. The office didn't look fancy, but right now it felt like the center of the universe. Jacob sat in a chair that squeaked every time he moved, hands resting on the camera like it was some fragile living thing. The curator and two museum experts hovered around a desk, pulling out books, files, old photos, the whole research mode vibe. One of them spoke first. Sir, do you mind telling us how your father got this camera? Jacob exhaled slowly. He never really talked about it. He just said someone trusted him with it, and that one day it might matter. Do you have his name? The curator asked. Daniel Reyes, Jacob said. He worked odd jobs, sometimes fixing machines, sometimes photography gigs. Kinda everywhere, you know? The room went quiet for a second, like that name rang a bell. One expert glanced at an old record book. His eyes widened. Reyes. Daniel Reyes worked briefly with Marcelli's restoration team before the fire. Jacob blinked. Wait, my dad worked with that guy? Yep, the expert said. Looks like it. Jacob leaned back stunned. His dad never bragged. Never made himself sound bigger than life. He was just Dad. The guy who fixed broken radios, made grilled cheese sandwiches too crispy, and told him to be kind even when people weren't. And now this? He swallowed. He never told me. The curator spoke softly. Maybe he wanted to protect it. Or maybe he wanted it to reach you first. That line kinda hit hard. Jacob looked down at the camera. The scratches, the small dent near the shutter, the worn strap. He remembered being a kid, watching his dad carry it like it was something sacred. He remembered one night, his dad cleaning the lens, whispering, "People will laugh because they don't understand value. That's okay. Real worth doesn't ask for attention." Yeah, that memory suddenly felt louder. One expert gently asked, "Sir, may we test the internal serial engraving? We won't damage anything." Jacob nodded. They worked carefully, like surgeons, tiny tools, soft gloves, focused faces. Then one of them whispered, "There it is, original mark, no replica. This is real." The curator inhaled sharply, like he'd been holding his breath for 20 years. "It's authentic," he said. "One of the last original prototypes, the kind collectors dream about but never actually find." Jacob stared at them. "So, what now?" The curator sat across from him. No drama, no hype, just honest respect. "Now," he said, "we talk about what this means for you, and what you want to do." Jacob shrugged lightly. "I don't know, I just clean floors, try to raise my kid. I never thought something like this would land in my lap." "And yet," the curator replied, smiling softly, "here you are." A knock on the door broke the moment. The billionaire woman stepped inside. Yep, her. Security must have let her in because she insisted, and she walked in like she was still the most important person in the room. She looked at the camera, not with interest, but with frustration, like reality had betrayed her. "So," she said, folding her arms, "what's the number everyone keeps whispering about?" The curator sighed calmly. "Ma'am, this is a private valuation discussion." She ignored that. "Listen," she said to Jacob, voice smooth in that fake sweet business tone wealthy people use when they suddenly care. "I'd like to make you a personal offer." Jacob raised a brow. "For what?" "For the camera," she said. "Right now, cash transfer, immediate." His chest tightened a little. Of course she wanted to own what she once laughed at. The curator spoke firmly. "Ma'am, please don't pressure," she cut him off. 500,000, she said. "Right now." Jacob froze. 500,000. Yeah. That number punched the air out of him. Rent, debt, food, school, survival, all flashing through his head like some fast playlist. But the room didn't react like she expected. The curator just looked disappointed. One expert whispered to Jacob, "That camera is worth far, far more than that." The billionaire mom frowned. Jacob took a slow breath. For once in his life, people were waiting on his decision, and he wasn't the janitor in the corner anymore. He was the man holding history. He looked up, and yeah, the next words he spoke were about to change everything. Jacob had spent most of his life saying yes. Yes to extra shifts. Yes to cleaning messes he didn't make. Yes to crappy schedules. Yes to people talking down to him like that was just the weather. Saying no wasn't really his thing. But right now, yeah, this felt different. He looked straight at the billionaire mom. She was standing too confidently, like money made gravity lighter for her. 500,000, she repeated, slow and smug. "That's more than you'll ever make mopping floors. Be smart." The room tightened. Even the air felt heavier. The old version of Jacob, tired, worn down, just trying to get through the day, would have folded. He would have said yes, taken the deal, said thank you like she was doing him a favor. But his dad's voice showed up in his head again. "Never sell yourself short just because someone else can afford you cheap." Jacob nodded slowly. "Yeah, nope." Her eyes widened. "Excuse me?" He shrugged a little. "I said nope, not selling. Not to you." It was calm, no drama, just solid. And honestly, it shocked her way more than it shocked him. Her jaw tightened. "You don't understand how this works." Jacob almost laughed. Yeah, I do. You laughed at it. Then you found out it was worth something. Now you want to own it. That's how this works. The curator coughed, trying not to smile. She dropped the nice act instantly. People like you don't walk away from numbers like that. He leaned back in his chair. People like me learn not to trust people like you. That landed hard. For a second, she had no comeback. Just silence and a tight fake smile trying not to break. The curator gently stepped in. Ma'am, please leave. This really is a private conversation. She stared at Jacob one last time, the look you give a puzzle that refuses to solve itself, then turned and walked out, heels hitting the floor sharper than before. The door closed. The curator exhaled. That was impressive. Jacob shook his head. Nah, it was overdue. They sat back down. The curator placed a folder in front of him. Let's talk honestly. If you choose to sell to the museum, which is completely your choice, we are prepared to start the offer $8 million. Jacob blinked. He didn't hear wrong. $8 million. His brain glitched. Not joking, real glitch, like his thoughts just crashed and restarted. He'd never even said that number out loud. He legit didn't know what that amount of money looked like. He could barely process 4 digits without thinking rent. I don't even know how to react to that, he whispered. That's okay, the curator said kindly. You don't have to react right now. You just have to think. You're allowed to breathe. Jacob laughed under his breath. Yeah, been a while since anybody allowed me anything. He thought of his daughter again, her messy ponytail, her goofy smile, the way she'd fallen asleep doing homework last night while pretending she wasn't tired, the way he'd promised her a better life without having a clue how to give it. Then he looked at the camera. It had been there through everything, through moves, through loss, through crappy apartments, through his dad dying, through nights when the only sound was his own stress. He whispered, Dad, what the hell did you leave me with? The curator gently said, whatever you decide, sell it, keep it, display it temporarily. We will respect you. The days of people laughing at this camera are over. Jacob nodded. But deep inside, he knew something bigger was happening. This wasn't just about money. It was about identity, about not being invisible anymore, about not letting rich strangers define value. He rubbed his face and exhaled. Okay, I need to go pick up my kid from school in an hour. Can we pause the world until then? Everyone in the room chuckled softly. Of course, the curator said. Take the camera. Think about everything. Come back tomorrow. No pressure. For the first time in a long time. Jacob walked out of a room without feeling small. The billionaire woman watched from across the hall, eyes burning with a mix of anger and curiosity. And yeah, this story wasn't done messing with anybody yet. The city felt different on the walk home, even though nothing actually changed. Same cracked sidewalks, same traffic noise, same breeze that smelled like street food and car fumes. But inside Jacob, yeah, everything was buzzing. His daughter, Lily, was waiting outside the school gate, backpack hanging off one shoulder, grinning like life was simple. She ran up to him and wrapped her arms around his waist. Dad, you brought the camera again? She said, pointing at the strap across his shoulder. Yep, he said, smiling. Staying close to me today. She didn't know the whole story yet. He wasn't ready to drop the whole, hey kid, life might change forever bomb before fries. They hit their favorite cheap diner. Booth in the corner. Cracked vinyl seats. She ordered fries. Extra salt like always. He got a coffee because, yeah, his brain needed backup. Lily talked about school, some kid fight, a science experiment that exploded a little, and how her teacher still couldn't say her last name right. Normal stuff, calm stuff. Stuff that reminded Jacob that real life wasn't headlines or money or museums. Then she paused and squinted at him. Why are you acting weird? He laughed softly. Weird how? Like, your brain is somewhere else, she said. And also you keep staring at that camera like it's a baby. He nodded. Fair call. Okay, he said. So, something happened today. Her eyes widened. Bad or good? Kinda both. But mostly crazy. He told her everything, step by step. The laugh, the curator, the history, the word millions, the offer, the lady trying to buy it cheap, the part where he said nope. By the time he finished, Lily was frozen mid-fry. No way, she whispered. Like, actual millions? Real ones? Not movie millions? Yeah, he said quietly, real ones. She leaned back and covered her face with both hands. Oh, my God. They sat there for a minute, not talking, just letting reality sit down at the table with them like a third guest. Then she lowered her hands and said the most honest thing in the room. Dad, I don't want money to change you. That hit harder than anything the curator said. He nodded slowly. Yeah, me neither. She shrugged. I mean, I want a bed that doesn't squeak every time I breathe, and I wouldn't mind actually going on a school trip for once. But I still want you to be you. He laughed. Deal. Silence again. Then she looked at the camera. What do you want to do with it? He stared at it, thumb rubbing the worn leather strap. I don't know yet, he said. Part of me wants to keep it. It's Dad's. It's memories, you know. But another part of me is like, what if this is our shot? What if this is the one break we get in life? She nodded slowly. Grandpa always said things should help people, right? Not just sit there. Yeah, Jacob said quietly. He did. They finished their food and headed home. Their apartment still smelled like detergent and old carpet. Same squeaky door, same small kitchen, same life, at least for tonight. Lily went to do homework. Jacob sat on the couch and placed the camera on the table. The room went quiet. He finally let himself feel the weight of it, not the metal, the meaning. His father trusting him. The years where nothing went right. The mornings he almost gave up. The nights he told himself tomorrow might be better, even when he didn't believe it. He whispered to the empty room, Dad, if I sell it, are you gonna think I gave up on you? No answer, just silence. And yeah, that silence felt louder than any laugh he'd ever heard. He leaned back, closed his eyes, and knew one thing for sure. Whatever decision he made tomorrow, it wasn't going to be about pride. It was going to be about purpose. Morning hit different, not brighter, not magical, just heavier. Like the world was waiting for Jacob to make a move. He barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw numbers, museum lights, his dad's face, Lily's worried eyes, and that stupid laugh from yesterday echoing in the back of his head. He made toast, burned it, didn't care. Lily grabbed her backpack and hugged him before school. Whatever you choose, she said, choose it for us, not for fear, not for revenge. For us, yeah. Kid was smarter than half the adults he'd met in life. After she left, Jacob sat at the table with the camera again. Then his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something in his gut said, answer. Hello? A smooth, polished voice came through. Jacob, this is Vanessa. He paused. Yeah, the billionaire mom, of course. He sighed. How'd you get my number? I have ways, she said casually. Listen, I want to apologize about yesterday. I was dismissive. He leaned back in his chair. Yeah, you were. Silence on her end for a second. Then she said, I want to make a serious offer. Not insults, not games. He stayed quiet. She continued. 1 million, cash, today, no contracts, no press, no attention. You walk away rich, your life changes now. No museums, no waiting, no lawyers. He closed his eyes. There it was, the easy out temptation. Fast money, fast escape, no thinking required. But also, no respect, no story, no truth. Jacob rubbed his forehead. Why do you want it so bad? Her voice stiffened. Because I collect rare things. Because value belongs with people who can protect it. Because, he cut in, no, that's not it. You want to own what embarrassed you. You want to erase that moment you laughed at something you didn't understand. Silence again. Then she said quietly, maybe. That honesty surprised him. She added, softer now, or maybe I just don't like losing. Yeah, there it was, pride, ego, control. He exhaled. Vanessa, I'm not selling it to you. Her tone sharpened instantly. Don't be stupid. This offer won't come again. He shook his head. Yeah, nope. I'm done being the cheap option in other people's stories. The call ended. No goodbye. Just cold silence. He grabbed his jacket, slung the camera strap over his shoulder, and headed back to the museum. Every step felt like walking toward a version of himself he hadn't met yet. Inside, the curator greeted him with a warm smile. I'm glad you came back. Jacob nodded. Yeah, me too, I think. They walked into a quiet conference room, papers on the table, a simple contract, no tricks, no weird clauses, just terms, respect, and a future that didn't feel fake. The curator spoke gently. Before we finalize anything, I want you to understand something. If you choose to sell, this isn't just a transaction. Your father's name will be recorded in our archives. Your story, his story, becomes part of history. Jacob blinked. His father, not erased, not forgotten, seen. The curator continued. We'll also create a plaque, a permanent one, honoring both of you. That hit harder than the money. For the first time, Jacob didn't feel like some dude who just got lucky. He felt like a bridge, like his dad handed him a torch and said, finish what I couldn't. He took a long breath. Okay, he said quietly. Let's talk terms. But one condition. The curator nodded. Name it. Jacob looked at the camera, then at the future. I don't want this to just sit in a glass box. I want kids, people who come here, to see it and know that value doesn't always look fancy. I want them to know sometimes the world laughs first and understands later. The curator smiled. That, he said, is exactly what museums are for. Jacob finally felt calm, not hyped, not scared, just ready. Across the city in some luxury penthouse, Vanessa stared out her window. Furious, confused, and weirdly shaken. For the first time in her life, money wasn't enough. And yeah, the story was far from over. They spread the papers out on the table. Nothing fancy. Just clean pages, typed clauses, little boxes where signatures go. Jacob stared at them for a moment, breathing slow, trying to wrap his head around the fact that his name, his actual name, was about to sit next to an $8 million figure. Yeah, wild. The curator walked him through every line. No rush, no pressure, just respect. Real respect. The kind he wasn't used to getting from anyone outside his tiny world. This section, the curator said, pointing gently, confirms the historical transfer while preserving your father's attribution. And here, your daughter will be listed as next of kin reference in the archival notes. Jacob swallowed. Lily's name, permanent, in a place that actually mattered. He nodded. Okay, yeah, I'm good with that. He picked up the pen. His hand shook a little, not fear, more like gravity realizing it'd been wrong about him his whole life. He signed. One page, then another, then the last one, and just like that, a janitor became a man with a future. The curator shook his hand firmly. Congratulations, Jacob. He didn't cry, but yeah, his eyes definitely tried to. Thank you, he said, voice tight, for treating me like I'm not just some guy with a mop. The curator smiled. You were never just anything. The museum arranged immediate deposit procedures, no shady nonsense, everything above board. Jacob would still have to go through banking steps, identity confirmations, all that real-life stuff. But it was happening. For the first time ever, money wasn't a dream, it was math. The door opened, and to Jacob's surprise, a small press team entered. Not cameras in his face, nothing aggressive. Just 2 reporters and 1 photographer, polite and careful. We'd like to record this moment for the exhibit history, the curator explained softly. Only if you consent. If not, we'll cancel. Jacob thought about it. All those years he walked past people who never noticed him. All those days he blended into the background like furniture. And now, The world wanted to see him. Yeah, he said, let them. They asked simple questions. How he got the camera, what his father meant to him, what it felt like to be laughed at one minute and respected the next. Jacob didn't sugarcoat anything. He kept it real. Kinda feels like life said, hey man, you've carried enough weight, here's a break. They smiled at that. Meanwhile, outside the museum, word started spreading. Collectors, historians, random people on social media. A headline popped up online. Janitor's vintage camera discovered as lost Marcelli prototype, sold for record figure. It traveled fast, screens lit up, phones buzzed, comments flooded. Some people cheered, some people doubted. Some people said things like, must be luck, bet he didn't even know what he had. Things like this don't happen to people like us. But a whole lot of others, they saw hope in it, a reminder that value doesn't always show up with shine and status. Up in her penthouse, Vanessa read the headline on her tablet. Her jaw tightened, not because he sold it, not because she missed out on owning it, but because the story, his story, was everywhere, and she wasn't the hero in it. For once, she couldn't rewrite the narrative. Jacob left the museum that afternoon feeling lighter than he'd ever felt, not because of the money, though yeah, that part was insane, but because deep inside, he finally believed something he never let himself believe before. He wasn't small. He was never small. And his father had always known. The museum was packed the day they unveiled the exhibit. Not just experts or rich collectors, regular people, families, school kids, folks who probably never cared about cameras in their entire lives. But, yeah, this one felt different. Jacob stood off to the side with Lily. Both of them dressed a little nicer than usual. Nothing fancy, just clean, simple, real. Lily held his hand tighter than normal, like she knew the moment was way bigger than either of them. The curator stepped up to the podium. Short speech, no dramatic fireworks, just truth. This artifact, he said, was not only preserved by history, it was preserved by loyalty, love, and humility. Today we honor the man who protected it, and the father who trusted him with it. They pulled the cloth away, and there it was, the camera. Behind glass, lit softly, solid and honest, not pretending to be anything other than what it was. A small plaque sat beneath it. Lorenzo Marcelli prototype camera, protected for decades by Daniel Reyes, preserved and entrusted by his son, Jacob Reyes. Jacob had to blink a couple times just to keep himself together. Lily whispered, Dad, Grandpa's name is in a museum. Yeah, he said quietly, and so is ours. People walked up to read the story panel next to the display. No exaggeration, no drama, just the real journey. How a working-class man held on to something the world didn't recognize. How people laughed. How value finally caught up. A kid pointed at the photo of Jacob beside the camera and said to his mom, He's a janitor? But he did something huge. The mom smiled. Yeah, honey. Big things don't care what job you have. That one sentence? Yeah, that one almost knocked the air out of him. Across the room, Vanessa stood quietly in the crowd. No sunglasses, no attitude, just still. For the first time, she didn't look powerful. She looked human. She walked up to Jacob. No cameras watching, no reporters hovering, just two people facing reality. I came to see it, she said softly. He nodded. Yeah. She stared at the camera for a while. Then she said, You were right. I didn't understand value. I just understood price. He didn't gloat, didn't throw anything back at her. He just said, Yeah, happens. She nodded once, not proud, not broken, just accepting. Congratulations, she said. And this time, she meant it. Then she walked away. No drama, no ego, just growth. Later that evening, after the crowd thinned out, Jacob and Lily stayed behind with the curator for a quiet moment. The museum light hit the glass gently. The room felt calm. Lily leaned her head on Jacob's arm. Do you miss having it at home? She asked. He thought about it. The weight of the strap in his hand, the quiet history, the memories. Yeah, he said, kinda, but I think this is where it was meant to end up. She nodded slowly. Grandpa would have liked that, she said. Yeah, Jacob replied. He would have. They stood there in silence, not the heavy silence from the old days. This one felt peaceful, like closure, like respect, like the world finally paused long enough to say, hey, you mattered. Jacob exhaled, not out of stress this time, but relief. No lottery lights, no superhero moment, just a man who finally felt seen. And as they walked out of the museum, hand in hand, the city didn't look richer, brighter, or new. It just looked fairer, even if only for one day. And yeah, that was enough.